Welcome to those of you who've just joined us. My name is Chris, and I'd like to start this evening with a land acknowledgement. While you may be joining us from all over the world, myself and many of my colleagues are here in London, Ontario. And I'd like to acknowledge the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenape, and the Attawandaron peoples, whose traditional lands I am gathered upon today. We're very excited to have you here for our residence event. Before I go through the itinerary for tonight, let's go through a few housekeeping items. First, we are recording this session and it will be available on our website in a few days. It'll be on the same page where you went to register for this session, welcome.uwo.ca/presentations. Next, we have enabled live closed captioning for the webinar. If you'd like to turn it on, you'll find live transcript button on your Zoom bar. You can then choose show subtitles and a box will appear that you can put wherever you would like on the screen. The other option is to choose view full transcript and the transcript will pop up in a sidebar. Just remember this is live closed captioning and we cannot guarantee the accuracy. Next, your audio and your video will remain off during the event, but that doesn't mean we won't be interacting together. We will have polls throughout the event and we also want to answer all of your questions. You can submit those questions using the question and answer box. You'll find this at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. You can enter questions now or whenever you think about them. I'm joined by lots of friends from Western tonight, staff and students, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions. We're also going to choose some common questions and answer them together live at the end. So what else is happening tonight? Here you go. It's pretty simple tonight. We're going to have a presentation from Chris, the other Chris, about everything you'll need to know about residence. Then we're going to do a student panel. We'll have Tracy tell us all about what living in residence is like from a student perspective. And then we'll finish with a live Q&A, including some of the common questions that are asked. We hope you'll join us for the entire event, but if you're not able to stay, don't worry, as I mentioned, it will be recorded. And please don't forget to sign up for our other events. We have lots coming up this spring, including the Your Next Steps presentation. If you're thinking about coming to Western this September, we highly recommend you attend it. It's helpful for everyone to understand what to do next before coming to Western, and our next one is scheduled for May the 26th. We also have special presentations for our faculties and programs, and one on student experience coming up at the end of the month. And if you would like to register for these, you can sign up for all of them on the website, welcome.uwo.ca/presentations. Living in residence is exciting and memorable. It's truly an experience unique to being a university student. There's nothing else really like it. There's no comparable. It's not like camp. It's not like just living with friends in an apartment. It's really different from that and extraordinary. But rather than tell you, I'm going to let us watch a quick video to show you a bit more about what residence is like at Western. Well, that got me pretty excited about residents. And now I'd like to introduce our first guest of the evening to tell you a little bit more about residents, and that's Chris Langell, the Director of Housing here at Western University. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. And I'll just share my screen and happy to tell you a little bit more about what to expect in residence at Western. How's that look, Chris? Is that coming through okay?
Looking good.
Great. All right, folks. So there's a few things that I'll go through. I think we'll start with some of the fine print on this for sure, is that at the time of this presentation, there's just a few things to keep in mind. And I think just when we're talking about the residence experience and the experience at Western, we're in a bit of a unique scenario at the moment. Some of this, I think, is certainly related to the pandemic and the ongoing impacts. And we're really hopeful that we're moving beyond, the significant impacts of that. But some of those pieces are still with us. We're committed certainly to providing our students with a residence experience that is in a safe and a healthy environment above all else. And we've sought to really do that throughout the pandemic with some very specific health and safety protocols, some practices that are unique to the residences, recognizing this is a unique space on campus. A lot of this has happened certainly in consultation with health experts, equally on campus, locally, and through government. And these are the pieces, I think, that are still really something we continue to evaluate, and we will continue to evaluate between now and September. Some of the things that have happened historically here in the last 2 years have been the closure of certain spaces, restrictions in terms of guests, compliance with vaccination, masking, physical distancing, self-isolation, and testing requirements. I'm sure these are pieces, certainly anyone in the educational system in the last few years, that would not be a surprise to you, and something that we're going to be communicating a lot in terms of what to expect for our students in September. We're not unique in this, but certainly one thing that's a real priority for us is to be as transparent and openly communicative we can around this. We'll continue to adapt our policies and our procedures in alignment with the Middlesex London Health Unit. And keep in mind some of the photos, certainly the video that Chris showed as well. A lot of that is pre-pandemic in a world without masks that we're looking forward to returning to at some point in the not so distant future, but just something to keep in mind with some of the imagery from today as well. Okay. All right. So a few things here in terms of the geography. I think that's one thing to keep in mind. The campus is organized in a couple of different clusters of residences. We have a cluster of residences at the north end of the campus. We call this the north neighborhood, the east side of the campus, and then the south neighborhood. There's 11 residences in total, and in 3 different buildings, all within around a 10 to 15 minute walk to the middle of the campus. The primary composition of our student residence community is first-year students in alignment with our first-year guarantee. And some of the things we know, and certainly some that we're very, very proud of, and this is validated by things such as the Globe and Mail, which us through the student survey as Western's for 11 consecutive years. And certainly that's also seen in Maclean's university rankings in 2021, seeing this as the #1 residence in Canada in a category that we exist, which is the medical doctoral size of university. So a lot of things we know to be true. Certainly we see that in the experience of our students, but some other pieces that we're pretty proud of here as well. So again, I spoke to this just a moment ago in terms of who our residents typically are. There is certainly a mix of some upper year students on campus, but the vast majority of our residences are composed of first year students. And that's really something that we've held on to that's very important to us, which is that first year residence guarantee. So it's a guarantee for all single students coming directly from high school who receive full-time admission to main campus by mid-May. Okay, there's some other pieces in there that need to be considered in terms of applying on time and all of those pieces. And we'll go through those dates and deadlines that are upcoming as well. So why live in residence? This is a big consideration, certainly for lots of students. Many of our students are not from, the local London area. So living in residence is something that is a consideration, recognizing their travel. But we also have some students who make the decision, certainly living in London, that this is the right place for them. A lot of this has to do with a few things in terms of why students will choose to live in residence. Certainly a big part of that is the logistics. We're just close to your classes, to events, support services, and involvement opportunities on campus. It's really something that allows you to have the opportunity to feel immersed in that campus living experience, to feel a part of something bigger, and in that community environment that is so important to that transition of university, to really feel connected to peers, And I think that's something that's really important in the way that we design some of our services to reflect those needs of students as well. So it's close to class. That's one thing for sure. We've got clean and cared for facilities. I think that's something, again, if we think about those transitional needs of students emerging from high school experience, coming, oftentimes living away from home, this is something that we see that there's a learning curve for sure with students knowing what products to use, how regularly to do those things they might not be used to. That we have regular cleaning in all of the residence spaces that we offer as well. And usually around every 3 to 4 weeks, we have someone come into the suite and provide that cleaning. The other piece, certainly the basics here, is dining. We have seven residence dining halls, and it's something that's really easy in terms of that proximity. In the vast majority, we have certainly either in your building or right next door to use the residence meal plan in any of our residence dining halls as well. And that focus on safety, I think in terms of the structure, the security of our facilities, those are things, again, that we really prioritize and are really important to us. And we'll say a little bit more about that as well. I think the other pieces may not be as obvious, the less tangible pieces, is the other components about what advantages residence offers you. And one is the academic edge. It's that idea that you have that opportunity to, again, immerse yourself in that academic community on campus. And that's a big part. And we know this through a number of studies that we've done, that resident students actually persist to graduation faster than their off-campus peers. So these are important things, again, that we're proud of. A big part of that as well is that idea of that social experience, right? The idea of making friends, having, close to 5,600 students is what we have in residence. Many other students going through a lot of the similar transitions. There's that shared experience, and it's actually close to 80% of our incoming first-year students live in residence. So there is that shared experience that's really important for students having on campus. It's that unifying experience for many, and growing their leadership skills. I think that's the other piece. There's a lot of opportunities to get involved, to make a difference, and to find that meaningful experience outside of your classes, which is something that's really important to us. So in terms of what the residences look like, this is something, again, there's a couple of, there's a spectrum here, I guess, really is how I would describe it. Traditional style is the first, and we have got 3 buildings, including Delaware Hall, Medway Sydenham Hall, and Saugeen Maitland Hall here. These are mostly double rooms with some singles. And as you can see here, a lot of this that we describe is similar to what you might see in the movies, for example, right? It's the idea that you and a roommate, you've each got your own bed in a room with a desk and a chair, you've got your closet, your storage space, and then that front door opens up into a community made up of close to 30 other students in most communities, of first-year students with the identical setup to you. There's shared communities on the floor in terms of common spaces and washrooms and study areas as well. So that's traditional style. On the other end of the spectrum is what we call suite style. And this is much more similar to what I would describe as an apartment. So there's either 2, 3, and 4 bedroom suites. And the buildings that we offer here are Alumni House, Elgin Hall, Essex Hall, Lambton Hall, and London Hall. So if you look at the diagram on screen here, you can see that there are private bedrooms, that you've got a self-contained room with a bed, desk, chair, some storage, and then a variation of facilities depending on what building you're in. But it would be a more private washroom that you might share with 2, 3 other roommates, a shared sort of cooking area, so kitchen facilities, and a living area as well. So again, a lot of this is that continuum of what's important to you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that process of actually being placed in a particular style. But this is what suite style would look like. And then somewhere in between, hybrid is what we describe as the best of both worlds in a lot of cases. So in some of our newer constructions, this is what we learned in talking to students, as there's aspects they really like about suite style and traditional. And so if you look at the diagram on screen, we've got a hybrid layout here of 2 students in a bedroom, bed, desk, chair, all those pieces, but not right next to each other, a little privacy wall that separates them. And then a washroom area that is shared amongst a much smaller group. So it really is, in this layout here, 4 students, 2 in each bedroom, sharing 1 washroom facility. And there's a little sort of sink area there as well for this suite. And then that door opens up into that community again. In other buildings here, we have Bayfield Hall, Ontario Hall, and Perth Hall. In terms of the features, so what comes with our residences? There's a few things here. So 24-hour front desk access in many of our buildings. This is something that the services, the support that you need, regardless of what time of day, is available to you. Fully furnished bedrooms, we saw some of the layouts there, and certainly you can see more on our website through the virtual tour to actually get a sense of what the space looks like and what comes with it. Study rooms, floor lounges, we recognize that you can't spend the full year just locked away in your bedroom. So there's places to congregate, places to develop community, to study, to socialize, all those pieces that are embedded within the buildings as well. Got wired and wireless internet, workout rooms. We know that exercise is important, and there's great exercise facilities elsewhere on campus. But we know sometimes the convenience factor of having that in your building is something that's important as well. Music practice rooms, we recognize we've got certainly some students in our music faculty that this is an aspect of their learning, but we also have lots of students that just they have a passion for music. They want a space where they can also disconnect from some of the programs that they're studying and it pursues some of their passions. So we offer those spaces as well. Laundry facilities, because that's something that needs to happen. You can't just take it home every weekend to your parents' house. This is something that we offer in each residence as well. And then living learning communities that I'll say a little bit more about in a moment, about a distinctive factor about how we organize particular groups around areas of interest or academic study. And then regular in-room cleaning that I spoke about earlier. All right, meal plan and dining. So like I mentioned before, we've got 7 residence dining halls across campus. We've got a nutritionist on staff that can work with individual needs in terms of allergies, specific meal, dietary needs, is an aspect of what that support and that transition can look like. Before you even arrive on residence would be someone we could connect you to if there are specific needs tailored to you. It's a declining balance system with funds loaded on a Western One card. So if we compare this, let's say, to other universities, some schools, the way they do their meal plans is it's almost like an all you can eat. You pay per meal and then you swipe and you have a certain amount of meals you're allocated. At Western, what we've learned through our consultation with students is the preference here is this declining balance, which means that you pay for your meal plan at the beginning of the year. And then for the items that you buy that are weighed, in most cases, at checkout, that's really what you're charged for. And a lot of this, again, speaks to the options that we know that students want. In some cases, they might want for dinner is tofu and broccoli and rice, and that's great. The next day, they might just want a plate of fries, and your mom and dad are not around to tell you can't do that. But at the end of the day, it allows students to have that choice and that balance. There's a rotating menu cycle, so there's not always the same old thing in the dining hall, but your favorites certainly come back around too. Taco Tuesdays are often a really popular day. And again, I think that accessibility is another piece. If we look at food, it's one of those ways we really express our values at the university too. And we look at that inclusion aspect, that accessibility of plant-based options, halal, allergy-friendly, and gourmet deli, sandwich options, salad, fruit bar, etc. There's a lot of things for students to choose from. All right. And in terms of meal plan locations, so on campus, this meal plan can be used at any of the 7 residence dining halls. And there's 20 plus campus eateries, including Tim Hortons, Starbucks, Subway, Casa Burrito, Noodle Bowl, Bento Sushi, etc. And 70 vending machines in residence as well. Sometimes you just need something on the go. We've got that connected to your meal plan as well. Off campus can also be used with some of our local restaurants, and then delivery for things like pizza, Swiss chalet, etc. Safety and security. Again, we spoke about how important this is for students to feel like this is a place they can call their home for the period of time that they're here. The front desk staff are a big part of that. Like we discussed before, they're available during the day and by phone and 24/7. Sometimes it's just the idea of not really knowing where to turn if you have a particular question. And this is a resource that's available to you that can help answer those questions or at least point you in the right direction of someone who can. We've got guest sign in on weekends, and the front doors are locked 24/7 that are swipe access for the students who live in that building. We've actually got a team of duty staff to respond to issues that might arise in the after hours. We recognize that sometimes things happen. We've got support systems in place for those in need. This is in alignment with a much broader system of campus-wide security services, including special constables, our student emergency response team, foot patrol that can help walk to and from class, and emergency phones available as well. Support. Again, this is a big part of what that transition to university can look like. And it's really, I think, unique based on everyone's different background, lived experience before they get here. Some of the things we know and what's something we're really a part of is that peer support model is super important here. There's a lot of professional resources here at the university, and those are super important, including myself and a number of other folks on this call. But we've also got Tracy here, who can tell you a little bit more later about her experience as a student leader. But in terms of that support system, it's that blended model. We've got those professional clinical resources, certainly where we need to, but the student leaders are a big part of this. So our staff members includes what we call our residence dons. These are upper year students that are really mentors who live on every floor. They're there to help you with support in terms of questions around your academics, connecting you to campus resources. We've also got some academic focused resources like our academic and leadership programmers as well, and then our orientation leaders. And this is a big part of that transition as well. If we think about those things that students need when they first come to university, among their greatest fears is meeting peers with similar interest. It really is. Yes, it's a big academic transition, no doubt, but it's the idea that social transition can be really intimidating for folks as well. And we've got a significant team here to support that. The softs are a huge part of that. And you'll learn more about that as we approach the beginning of the academic year as well. In terms of those professionals, we talked about a few, but in more detail here, we've got full-time live-in residence life coordinators who live in the building, and then front desk staff like we mentioned before. Living learning communities. I mentioned this briefly, but these are themed floors in residence where students that share the same academic faculty or program or interests live together. These are access to upper year mentors and study groups, meet and greets with particular faculty members, and specific events and life skill development tailored to the needs of those communities. So some examples here would be some dedicated to engineering, whereas some of the more interest-based ones are dedicated to Indigenous and allyship. You know, if that's a passion of yours, you can opt in to live in one of these communities as well to support you, and these are offered at no additional cost. Roommate matching. So again, this is a big part of that move away to university, is the idea that you're likely to share your space with another person. So if you have someone that you know that you want to room with, you have the opportunity to request each other. As long as you both include that in your application, you know, do the aspects of the application you need to in terms of receiving your residence offer, paying your fees on time, ranking your building preferences the same, and joining that same roommate group in the housing portal, you have the opportunity to be placed with each other. The vast majority of our students, though, come without another person that they know or that they know they want to room with, and that will actually match you with a roommate based on some answers to our residence placement questionnaire. This is really questions that we ask in that RPQ is what we call it, the placement questionnaire, around lifestyle preferences. And it's as detailed as things like room temperature, you know, the level of volume, what time you like to go to bed or wake up. And we see a really high success rate for this because we're trying to really align folks on that baseline of preferences, what they need to live with another person and get along with others, which is a really important part of this experience too. So in terms of accommodation, some other things to highlight is that we're all a part of a very diverse community here at Western, and we respect that for some students, they may want to live with other students irrespective of their own or others' gender identity or expression. So we offer some options to try and match this for students. This includes single gender rooms and suites, and that means that you would share a bedroom and a bathroom with someone who identifies the same gender as you. But we also have mixed gender, something that you can opt into, where you'd share a bedroom and a bathroom with someone regardless of their gender identity. Like I said, this is an opt-in process and based on demand. Students will be able to choose from one of the two options when they complete the online residence placement questionnaire here as well. Accepting your residence offer. So into the nuts and bolts of this, what you need to do if you are coming to Western and living in residence is accepting your offer. Part of the step here is to log in to the housing portal, myhousing.uwo.ca, completing that residence placement questionnaire that I just discussed, and submitting that $900 prepayment using your credit card. And the deadline for this is upcoming. So June 3rd, mark that date in your calendars, but this is the deadline for that guarantee to be maintained. Fees. So this is another part of, you know, that jump to university is that, you know, there's a cost to this and there's a value aspect to consider here for sure. But traditional style, if we think of that spectrum of the styles of residence, the consideration there is yes, things like personal preference, privacy, all those pieces, but also price point. So if we look at the cost for traditional style listed on the screen, hybrid style, and suite style. And these are also on our website in much more detail. It also shows you the building amenities and the pieces that come with this as well. The meal plan, like we talked about, is mandatory aside from 2 of our buildings, and the cost is there on screen. I'll leave that up for a moment for folks who want to take a screenshot. All right. And then in terms of staying connected, so like we talked about, a big part of the experience of living in residence is feeling connected to the process, to the campus community, and that begins now. We begin to communicate very regularly with our incoming resident students after that deadline is passed. Before you arrive on campus, you would find your building assignment and all those pieces in terms of that preparation, and there'd be open dialogue and discussion in those weeks and months leading up, because we know that students have a lot of questions and they're really excited. And so we want to do our best to respond to those. And you can connect with us in a couple of different ways. Like I said, our website is really informative in terms of some of the more detailed aspects of what I went over tonight. You can connect with us through email, and then our social media channels are there as well. I think that's everything I want to share. Thank you. I think you might be on mute there, Chris.
Wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if I didn't mute myself at some point. So thanks a lot, Chris. We're just going to move on to an interactive portion of the evening, and we want to hear from you, the students. I'm just going to launch a quick poll right here, and that poll is going to ask you, where are you joining us from this evening? Are you in London, Ontario, somewhere else in Ontario, somewhere else in Canada, or maybe you're in a different time zone, somewhere else in the world? Getting a lot of responses right there. So give it another few seconds just to have a look. And there you can see the results there. So we don't have a lot of folks in London, not surprising, but we do have a lot of folks, about 3/4 of you from somewhere else in Ontario, 13% from somewhere else in Canada, and then the rest of you are in other parts of the world. So welcome. No matter where you are, I'm hoping that you will choose Western and come and join us on campus this September. Now, for the next question, I'd like to ask, who is with you today? Is it just you joining us? Do you have mom and dad looking over your shoulder? Maybe they're asking some of those questions in the Q&A, keeping me and my colleagues busy. Do you have some friends joining you? Maybe one of you or your best friends from high school are both coming to Western. I know that was the case for me and a few of my friends, or are just your pets with you? And it looks like a lot of you, about half of you, it's just you, and there's a lot of family out there. So hi, mom and dad, welcome. Feel free to also put your questions in that Q&A between now and the end of the event, and we will come on live to answer some later. Now I'd like to ask, what are you most excited for when you live in residence? Is it making new friends? Is it eating in one of those lovely dining halls where we saw some of the food and the menu options that Chris went over? Is it the ability to walk to class? We like to say that most parts of the campus are about 15 minutes maximum distance from one area to the other. Is it social events on your floor, or is it all of the above? All right, let's see what those results are right there. Looks like a lot of you are interested in making new friends, but a lot of you are interested in making new friends, eating out in the dining hall, walking to class, and the social events. You'll get to experience all of those if you come to Western this September. Now, my last question for the evening is, have you decided if you'll be joining Western this fall? I'm hoping a lot of you are. If some of you are waiting on your offer still and aren't sure about them, they should be coming out in the next week to 2 weeks. Everyone will have a decision by the end of the month, unless you had applied a little bit late in the cycle. Okay, let's have a look at some of those results there. So almost half of you are coming here for the fall, and then the rest are still making up your minds. If you are on the fence and you're trying to make up your minds, please feel free to connect with us in the chat. You can also book an appointment with one of our liaison officers over Zoom by visiting welcome.uwo.ca and going to the Contact Us page. So that's it for our polls for this evening. And now I'd like to turn it over to the next part of the evening, which is our student panel. And for that, I would like to invite my colleague Tracy on, and she can share some of her experiences as a student in residence and as a student leader in residence. So Tracy, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to get to speak to all of you.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. I know the students are also very excited. Feel free to throw on your video if you're comfortable doing so. My first question is, what was the best part about living in residence for you?
First off, I would love to throw on my video. Right now it is a disabled feature for me, so if that can be sorted on the back end, I'd love for you all to see me, but I'll jump right into the question while that is getting sorted out. The best part about living in residence for myself truly was how unique of an experience it was. Living in residence and being in close proximity to so many of your peers is truly a once in a lifetime experience. And as a student leader, one of my favorite things to try and get other students to also be involved in residence is you have the rest of your life to live in a house, but you will never have the opportunity to live in residence again. And I really, truly stand by that because the proximity to campus, to people around you, the events and experiences that you will have, as well as easy access to a bunch of amenities that were mentioned earlier, whether that be the cafeteria. I personally lived in residence for 3 years, and not cooking was definitely a plus during the student life, as well as other resources like laundry, the cleaning, all of that fun stuff. There's also super easy and quick study breaks that you can have, whether that's going to a friend that's studying beside you or going to play a game of pool in the games room. There's really so much that you can do while still being academically focused. And it's really an experience that holds such a close place in my heart, but also is so unique to your first year in university.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. And how did you make friends when you first lived in residence?
I came to Western knowing approximately 3 people across the entire campus. So making friends was definitely something that I was worried about. The events during O Week are really tailored towards making those connections in your faculty and in your residence. And that was something that helped me a lot. The student leaders on my floor and in my building helped get me connected to activities where I could make those social connections, whether that be flag football or joining council, going to events. There are so many opportunities for you to meet new people, and even if that's not within your room, within your floor, somewhere within a community that you are a part of, you will be able to find like-minded people, and it's really an opportunity for everyone to come together.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. And just about the food in the dining halls, I know pad thai is like probably my favorite. People used to actually follow the pad thai around from location to location with a rotating menu. How did you find the food choices in housing?
That's actually a really good question. I feel like residents cafeteria food in general gets a really bad rep, and I found that Western did a really good job with it. I was very pleasantly surprised coming into first year to find that it wasn't just sludge on a plate like the movies kind of depict it to be. It was mentioned earlier in the presentation as well that there are some rotation foods, and there are some things that are kind of there to stay. And I found that there was a really good variety. And I lived in residence for 3 years, and I can honestly say that I very rarely got sick of eating in the cafeteria.
Moving on to a whole different topic. How was it sharing a bathroom in residence?
Sharing a bathroom is not as scary or gross as you might think it is. I know that, again, some styles might get a bad reputation because of movies and things that are depicted, but with the cleaning cycles, everything is kept super clean. I'd recommend maybe shower shoes if that's something that you're worried about in a traditional style, but besides that, I had no problems. I don't know of anyone who really had issues in terms of bathrooms, and it's pretty easy to get into a routine with your roommates, so that if you are a morning shower or a night shower or whatever it may be, you can very easily sort out those issues.
And just around getting some work done, your academics, were you able to find quiet places to study in residence or around campus?
Yeah, both in residence and around campus, there are tons of like private study rooms and group study rooms. So lounges on every floor, study rooms. There are also on campus, you can book out rooms and go to, you'll start to learn kind of the places to go that are visually pleasing to study in, or that are really quiet and that you can focus. And you can always find somewhere where you can do some work in a quiet spot or with friends if that's what you're into.
Thanks, Trace. Just a couple more questions here. How did you find your experience as a student leader once you moved into your upper years?
I love being a student leader. The SOFing program in particular was something that was very pivotal in my university experience. So it completely changed my first year experience, and I'd say the course of my university journey. SOFs and staff are truly a point of contact for you, both for residence questions and faculty specific questions. I found that it was the most rewarding thing to give back to a program that helped me get through my first year and kind of navigate life away from home and academically as well. It is, in my opinion, the most rewarding thing I have done with my life so far, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who is interested in a student leader position to look into student leadership within residence, because you can make so many great connections. I met a lot of my best friends through the program, and I can't really put into words how much I would recommend getting involved with it.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. And just one last question. Is there any advice that you would give to your high school self about either coming to Western or any university for that matter, or about living in residence if you could do it all over again?
Wow, there's probably so much I would tell myself. I think the main takeaway would really be just be yourself and things work out. Failing an exam does not define you as a student. Maybe having a fight with a roommate doesn't mean that your year is doomed. I feel like you go into this whole new world and this new experience, and everything is like so black and white of like, it's either amazing or like you have no idea what you're doing, but everyone is in the same boat as you. And the amazing thing about Western is that it is really a community-based school where everyone is trying to get through university and that experience together and be those supports for each other. And that was something that I really enjoyed and appreciated and didn't know about the school before I came. And so really just taking things one step at a time and enjoying every step of the way, because while yes, those first few midterms might feel like the end of the world, you'll look back on it and almost laugh at how like things that feel like they're so hard to get through really are okay at the end of the day.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. I really appreciate all your answers there and for being with us tonight to talk to some of the high school students. If you just keep your video on, and I'm going to ask Chris Langale to join us as well. I know many of you have been asking questions in the chat throughout the event tonight, and we've been trying to answer them, but I just thought we would do a bit of a question and answer at the end to try to answer some of those questions live. And I do think that the top one off the top would be, how do I choose my roommate to live in residence? I think I'll put that to Chris.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to jump in. I think some of this is certainly clear. If you go through the application, you'll see the section where you can indicate this. But like we discussed in the presentation, roommates are guaranteed to be placed together as long as they join the same roommate group in that residence placement questionnaire on the housing portal and meet all the criteria. Again, you can find some more details about this and the specific process on our residence website under our FAQ for roommate selection and placement. Like I talked about before, a lot of our students also do not request roommates. And in that case, again, we'll match someone based on that compatibility with that placement questionnaire as well. So just some things to keep in mind. But the FAQ would allow you to have a little bit more detail in there on our website and actually clicking through the application to begin that process yourself.
Thanks a lot, Chris. And another question, how do you get the building that you want?
Yeah, it's an important question for sure. I'm sure, Tracy, you could probably speak to some of this too, but the official answer, I think, is that I think preference is one of the things, right? There isn't necessarily one specific building that calls to people. And there's a lot of, I think, different interpretations of what the best building is. If you talk to someone who lived in Medway Sydenham, they would argue that that's the best place to be on campus, right? There's that sense of tradition, the courtyard, all those pieces. Each building has its own identity and a strong culture to it. And I think that's a really important part to consider. On the flip side, we've got some of our newer constructions like Ontario Hall, one of our hybrid style that has that more modern look and feel. I think in a lot of cases, it's more considering the building type, which I would advise folks to think about, because there's really no guarantee that you're going to get exactly what you might rank as your number one choice, but it's considering, I think, some of those pieces that are most important to you. Like we talked about before, price point is something, privacy, the degree of, community and those aspects are traditional spaces. What you might think are far removed from what you might want in terms of having a roommate and shared facilities. We see some of the strongest sense of community in our traditional style residence as well, right? It's the idea that you and a couple other 100 students going through that very similar experience, sharing in those spaces, is something that really has that sense of unity. That is a really important piece. I think we hear a lot from our students that even if they didn't necessarily get their number one ranked choice, that they're really happy that they got what they were placed in the end, because it's really less about the buildings themselves and it's more about the people. And Tracy talked about that too, that I think we've got unique features, each of our residence buildings. It's really more about what matters to you most and doing that and selecting that style of residence in your rankings to give you the higher likelihood that you'll get it in that lottery process. But I don't know, Tracy, if there's more you want to add. You've lived in residence more than I have, but in terms of, what your experience was, what it was in terms of the best building on campus, I'm sure you have an opinion.
I feel like I might be a little bit too biased to answer that question, but I definitely agree that what I did and what I would recommend for people is to kind of reflect on what are you used to with your living arrangement and what would you like? So I personally preferred suite style because I knew myself, I was a little bit introverted, a little bit extroverted. So I still wanted roommates, but I wanted my own space as well. So I found that suite style was the perfect fit for me, but it's not for everybody. So have a little sit down, reflect on what you want out of your university experience and your living arrangement, and pick the choices that align with that. I think I had some arbitrary decisions like, oh, this building had a vending machine, so I put it a little bit higher, things like that. But at the end of the day, every building is a great place to be, and you will end up having a good experience with whatever choice you get. People get really upset when they don't get their first choice or two, but like Chris just said, I haven't heard of many people who weren't happy with their building in the end.
What I'd also say to you, just to build on that, is we've been doing some recruitment events, so some folks might have already been on campus. There's other opportunities to come to campus over the course of the summer, whether it's for tours or some pre-arrival events. Well, you get a sense and a feel of it. But if you can't do that, our website really does have some really strong virtual tours. So you can sort of do that virtual walk through the facilities to sort of get a sense of what the layout looks like and what that looks like, different than the diagrams we showed tonight. So make sure you spend some time on the website to get a better feel for that as well.
I'm going to take this opportunity to put a shameless plug in. We just opened up. So a lot of people want to come to our campus. We've had 2 open houses. We're starting to ramp up our campus tours. So we did just open up a whole new block of dates in the month of May. So if you're trying to book a campus tour in the next few weeks, please do have a look at our welcome.uwo.ca site. Those also give you the opportunity to view a residence. Now, question for Tracy and Chris. Do all buildings have single rooms in them?
So I can take that one for sure. We do have single rooms throughout residence. Certainly, if you think about, again, that spectrum of options like Tracy spoke about, our suite style buildings are the ones that do have single rooms. Those are the ones where there is that private bedroom space with a couple of other roommates that you share the suite with, but there is that single bedroom. The other styles of residence, if we think about hybrid and traditional, there are some singles, but it's mostly doubles. So I think in terms of your expectations, imagine that if that's something that really matters to you, and that aligns with your preferences, then suite style likely is something to consider for sure. The other single spaces in our other buildings usually will be allocated to student leaders who have them, as well as students with specific accommodations and needs, right? So if we think about that accessibility in the residences, that's one aspect that we know that there are different styles of residence that we want to make sure that are accessible for folks, and we allocate rooms there too. There's a chance, but the vast majority of our stock in our hybrid and our traditional is double room.
Great, thanks, folks. And this has been a bit more of a serious question, a bit less fun. Do students need to be vaccinated in order to live in residence this fall?
Yeah, so I'm still looking for that crystal ball, if anyone has one, in terms of predicting where the pandemic is going to take us, because I think we've been certainly prioritizing health and safety, right? This is something that matters in a big way to a functional educational environment. It's been a top priority for the university since the start of the pandemic, and we've been leading in a couple of areas, including the vaccination requirement. This is one where my answer, and I apologize, it's not the best answer, but maybe, right? The idea is that currently the vaccination policy that we do have requires that all students living or studying on campus to have received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. But as the pandemic evolves, hopefully improves, this policy may change. It could require, should things escalate in a different way, that students receive a booster, including an Omicron specific booster, if and when it comes available. I think the thing to keep in mind is that by getting the vaccine, the goal here is to protect yourself and the students around you in the broader residence community. Like we talked about, this is a residence community made up of 5,600 students. It's communal living environments. These are things that are really important to us as we try and limit the risks that come with the pandemic, but certainly these are things we continue to evaluate, consult, and make decisions in alignment with health experts on campus and in the region.
Great, thanks a lot, Chris. I'm also looking for that crystal ball. Now into something a bit more fun. How do students know what to pack when they're coming to residence? Some of them might be coming from out of province, flying in internationally, so they might be conscious that they want to get all that packing right from the get-go, so they're not out, buying things and shopping.
Why don't I give the official answer, and then maybe Tracy, you can add in anything else about your experience of what to bring and what not to bring in some cases too, right? So certainly our website has something, and I don't want to keep referring to the website, but it is a great resource in terms of something called the move-in planning guide, and that includes the move-in day routes, tips, packing list, all those pieces. This will be continued to be updated over the course of the summer in terms of move-in dates, expectations, all those pieces. When we finalize those details, but certainly you can get a sense from last year's version about what to expect. Those things in terms of what to pack really won't change too much, but it would all be communicated in terms of updates for what it looks like for that move-in period after June 3rd, after you accept that residence offer and make your prepayment. But I don't know, Tracy, in terms of what you thought about, what you're happy you brought, maybe some things you feel like you didn't need, but what was on your mind when you were thinking about that packing list?
The resource online was initially my first thought, because I did use that, like, what to bring to each residence, what not to bring list online, and I found that very helpful because there were things that weren't allowed in residence that I wouldn't have even known. There were things that I should bring that I would have never thought of, so I would definitely reference that. And I would say that it also depends on what style of building that you're living in. So I know a very common item is a mini fridge. Maybe if you're living in suite style, since there's already a fridge there, you might not feel the need to have a separate fridge. Things like that. It can be dependent on your living situation, and if you know your roommate ahead of time. If you do know your roommate ahead of time, I would recommend coordinating, because I've seen so many people bring like duplicate items because they just never like talk to each other. One thing as well that I wish I knew I didn't need to bring with me was a garbage bin. For some reason, brought a garbage bin with me on that first day, only to find out that you are given a garbage and a recycling bin in your room. So that was one lesson that I had to learn the hard way, but hey, I have a garbage bin for my house now, so I guess I can't really complain. I also found it very helpful to kind of browse like Pinterest for like some like room decoration ideas. I took a look at what you are and are not allowed to put up on your walls in residence, and just kind of would overall recommend, if you are coming domestically, like pretty close from London, try and pack light, because unpacking is a process and you will thank yourself for packing light on that first trip. I know it's a little bit harder out of province or internationally, but there's a lot of storage within each style of residence. So you'll be able to put your empty suitcases, empty boxes, whatever else you might have, you will find some space for it. But if you can pack light, that would be my main tip.
I think the other thing I would add there too, like Tracy's point, if you've got the ability that home's not too far, bring what you need for September. You probably don't need your snow pants right away on that first 3 weeks. So maybe keep the winter gear at home. But for international students, recognizing too that you can't bring everything with you, that we also will organize some shopping trips and things like that. So if there's things you need when you get here to help guide you on maybe buying your first pair of snow pants, if that's the case, we certainly organize those things. That London as a city is also really well resourced in terms of everything you might need if you don't have it when you do arrive.
Thanks a lot, Tracy and Chris. That's about all the time we have for today. Huge thank you for both of you for coming and sharing information about residence. If we were in person, we'd try to give you a round of applause. And I hope that all the students that are attending found the information that you needed. We are here to answer a few questions in the Q&A before we shut down the room. So if you have any outstanding questions, please put them in there. We'll attempt to answer all of them before the end of the event. And with that said, if you want to connect with us, you can go to welcome.uwo.ca to connect with myself and my colleagues in recruitment. And I'd like to say good luck on your journey to university and have a good evening. Myself and my panelists will now turn off our cameras, but we will be there answering any of your remaining questions in the Q&A. And don't forget, if you want to come to campus and visit, we do have a new block of campus visits, including residence tours that just opened for the month of May. And we are prioritizing grade 12 applicants for all of those bookings. Thank you and have a great evening.